Hey, everybody. New episode of the What's Your Why podcast is out now with Jason Khalipa. He is the 2008 CrossFit Games Champion. He has owned a CrossFit gym for years, and now NC Fit has different members and different variations throughout the whole world. He was a CrossFitter and has a big history with the sport, but then has also recently joined into the jiu-jitsu world. And throughout the podcast, we discuss fitness, we discuss jiu-jitsu, and we discuss what it's like having a family and running business, but also like the main premise of it is always bettering yourself. Whether it's in jiu-jitsu, whether it's in CrossFit, whether it's in life, whether it's being a parent. I think you guys will really enjoy this one. So give it a listen. If you like it, share it or review it. I appreciate you guys coming back for more. Thank you.
We might as well kind of just get right into it.
Let's do it, man. Yeah, all good.
So obviously, just kind of been a fan of yours for a long time. So super happy to kind of get face to face, even though it's virtual. But appreciate you coming on. I want to start with that. Oh,
There you go.
lost you.
There you go. Yeah, no problem. It's great to be here.
So I kind of want to, a lot of my podcasts, I kind of start like with how you grew up, where are you from, understand like the root of like who you are. So where are you originally from? Where were you growing up?
Yeah, so I'm originally from a place called San Jose, California. I mean, I still live like right around here. But San Jose, pretty big city out here in California, Northern California. And then I've essentially grown up around this exact same area within like 20, 30 minutes. So now I live, a little bit in a different area that's super, super close by. But yeah, I've always lived around here. My family's all around here and things like that.
Gotcha. And all your gyms are right around the Bay Area, correct?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, we've had a lot of gyms. So we've had gyms all over the world through corporate wellness and different things we've done. Now, at this point today, we own and operate brick and mortar gyms here in the Bay Area, and then and in San Francisco, so still Bay Area. And then we primarily are focused on digital. So we service our members in two different ways: brick and mortar, and then digital. And in particular, we have a bunch of gym owners that use us, and then we're really speaking to the end user coming here shortly. So yeah, that's kind of like the business model we have.
Sweet. Well, let's go back a little bit. So you were growing up, was it like big city San Jose, or were you in a small version? What do your early days of childhood kind of look like when you're getting outside and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like like Texas fields and things like that. But my parents' house backed up to like a big kind of like, it was a lot of land. But we lived in still a big city though. Like, I mean, I was surrounded by a ton of people. So yeah, I mean, growing up, it was just like your typical. My dad was an engineer. My mom was worked in like the finance area. So it was great, all good.
And then when think early years, like between, I would say, early memories to high school, what kind of activities were you getting into? Were you pretty athletic back in the day as well?
Yes. I mean, well, back in the day, I don't know if I'd call myself athletic. I was just kind of, I always had a work ethic, but it was just a little bit different with my parents. My dad came from Iran, and he wasn't too familiar with like American style sports, and my mom wasn't either. And so I really got introduced to the sports that my neighbors were doing. So one of my neighbors used to race BMX bikes. And so I got really into that at a young age. I also played soccer. And then it wasn't until I got to high school I started playing more traditional sports, because I was introduced from other people there, right? So that's kind of the way it was all, it all came together, was that with BMX racing, it was because my neighbors influenced me. And then once I got to high school, it was just totally different.
Yeah. And what sports did you do in high school then?
I threw the shot at track and field, and then I played football.
Gotcha. I was a track and field nerd for years, kind of still am. I was coaching.
What'd you run?
So I didn't really run until like maybe my last year of track, but I was a pole vault guy.
Okay. All right.
And cool. I loved coaching pole vault way more than I loved participating in it. So I coached it for like 4 years after I graduated. So I think it's one of those sports that, or not sport. Well, yeah. Activities that is super all encompassing of like athleticism, you need speed, you have to be able to jump, you have to be able to maneuver your body like a gymnast. And it was super fun to be able to coach that. But I think it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever seen somebody try myself, but it's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
cool. But track and field is just like that in general. It's all over the board on what you're doing, whether you're throwing shot or running the 100-meter dash. It's completely different.
for sure.
So were you finding success in these different types of in football or track and field?
Yeah, I mean, I saw some success. I don't think I ever reached the potential there, just because I was at the higher end in terms of like performance on both sides. I just don't think that I really ever applied myself enough to kind of take it as high as I think it could have. Um,
Yeah.
in particular with the shot, like for example, our team, we didn't really have a coach, so you just kind of made it work. And I still, ended up doing really well in like CCS and WCL and things like that. But I would have maybe done better had I had a coach and more dedication for myself. And the same thing applied for football, right? Like, I mean, obviously we had coaches and things like that. I just didn't fully apply myself at that particular time. Which is, something I think back on, and I don't want to let that same thing happen for my kids where, they have maybe some potential, but it's not unlocked because they just, party too much or whatever happens.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. How has it been raising kids with fitness being all around you?
Yeah, it's just a part of the lifestyle, right? It's just not really
Yeah.
a conversation. It's just like what happens, like the kids are just surrounded by it all the time and they see us do it. And so it's just a part of their daily routine. It'd be like the same thing as like, brushing your teeth or whatever. It's just what gets done. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And so do they feel, and I know they're fairly young, but do they feel kind of like the want or the need to work out with you guys and
Yeah.
make it part of their life?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like I don't. Yeah, it's like a blend of both, right? It's more of just like living a healthy lifestyle and exercising regularly and things like that. But it's not like we don't like force them. We just
Yeah.
try and inspire and encourage and let them kind of find their own path there.
So I know that like CrossFit and being around just like functional fitness space, like the idea is to live a healthy lifestyle. And that seems kind of like the environment that you promote for your family, and for obviously for your gyms and for the people you train. I grew up my dad was a FIAD coach in weightlifting. He's like the
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There you are. I had lost you
okay.
for a second. Your dad
Okay,
is
so
something.
yeah, so my dad was a FIAD teacher and the weightlifting coach.
Ah, okay, cool. That's cool.
And what my sister and I grew up with was you show up to the gym every day at 6 o'clock and you lift. And if you're not doing anything after school, you lift as well. Well, it was more or less of like he was the instructor. He wasn't lifting as well. He lifts now, but at the time he wasn't. And
Mm.
so we were, but it was more or less for a sport aspect. Do you see your kids learning learning it from a sports side, or like this is what people do to stay healthy?
It's more about, doing this is what you do to stay healthy. Yeah, I don't
That's
think that we're encouraging them to ever go compete in the sport of CrossFit or Olympic
yeah.
weightlifting or anything like that. It's more so just a lifestyle component of this is going to be something that's going to be part of your daily routine to make you feel better and better health markers, look better, all that stuff. It's less about, oh, I want you to train in the garage so that you can become the next, CrossFit Games champion. It's not a priority for our family. I think for other people, if that's important to them, like that's great. It's just not important for us.
No, it's cool. I was thinking as you were saying that your kids were growing up in this space, like, oh, I actually did that as well, but it was for a completely different reason. It was for sport and
Yeah.
to get. I remember when I was like pretty young, my dad, we were leaving a football camp, and he was like, "Do you want to become like a brick shit house and be a fullback for a D1 school?" And I never got to that, but I remember that was the goal. for the
Yeah.
weight room was just being big and strong. For football, he was a big football guy.
Yeah. I mean, I
But
want kids to be big and strong and, for traditional sports, it's just not the focus
yeah,
to be the best weightlifter, like I'd rather have it translate into other things.
yeah, for sure. And so one thing that we kind of share in common, I think, is finding jujitsu
Yeah,
after CrossFit.
sure.
Tell me about your journey into finding jujitsu.
Oh man. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu just came at a good time. I was, it's funny because I'd travel all over the world, man. And I'd always
Hmm.
be, walking through airports and I'd get so many times people would be like, oh dude, I don't want to mess with you. And because I'm kind of bigger and stronger and people can typically just see that. And
Hmm.
I'd always think to myself, like, dude, I got a lot of skills. I could do all kinds of stuff with the barbell, dumbbells, kettlebells. I could walk on my hands. I could run 10K, whatever. But
Hmm.
when it comes to self-defense, that's an area where I'm lacking. And that really is what kind of inspired this whole thing of like being able to protect myself, protect my family, especially as I've gotten older and my kids are getting older. It's like, what's more important to me than that? And I think that's ultimately where jujitsu plays a really good role. And that's where I found it. So, I mean, as you know, man, it's like the game of chess and it's like human chess. And when you're really
Hmm.
flowing with somebody and you're hitting it, it's amazing. You have to be super present, super focused. It's definitely one of my favorite things to do for sure.
Yeah. And are you finding yourself, a lot of CrossFitters do this, they drop in wherever they travel to. Are you training at gyms throughout the world?
Yeah, yeah. So I just got back. Actually, I was training at some gyms in Greece. Went to one in Italy. Just went to like I'm going out next week to Maine. So I travel. Anytime I travel, I try and drop into and what's becoming more popular now is CrossFit gyms with jujitsu in them. Actually, so I could actually
Oh,
kind
wow.
of kill two birds with one stone. I can go in there, get in some strength training, and then also roll on the mats.
I think one of the guys who pioneered that was like Jocko early on in having his Victory MMA has been an affiliate um since like early or mid 2000s.
Yeah, so he's had Victory MMA, which is a CrossFit affiliate since '08. I mean, I would definitely call his gym definitely more of a MMA gym for sure. I mean,
Mm,
you go in
yeah.
there and like it's a lot of bags, a lot of groundwork, and then there's like this small CrossFit space. But yes, to your point, it is both.
Hmm.
There's uh-oh. But there's a lot of gyms. There's a lot of gyms that actually have bigger space than that, right? Like that are like
Okay.
almost like 50-50. So it's pretty wild.
Gotcha. No, that's cool. Are you going out to the Origin camp?
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be exciting. I looked at that last year, and I thought it'd be awesome, but just couldn't swing it this year. But maybe in the next few years, I think it'd be an awesome thing to experience.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're talking about jujitsu like 3 times a day. I don't really know what to expect, to be honest. It should be pretty interesting. I think
Hmm.
it's gonna be, I think it'll be exciting for sure.
Have you been to a few seminars before or anything like that?
Yeah, I've done some seminars. I've done some different things. I went to one with Gordon Ryan. I've had because of my background in CrossFit, it's really opened a lot of doors in jiu-jitsu.
Hmm.
I've had the opportunity to roll with people that I probably shouldn't, and spend time with people that I probably shouldn't. Just because of my background in CrossFit, it
Yeah.
opened the door in jiu-jitsu.
Well, no, it makes sense, and I think there's a big respect factor that a lot of people in jiu-jitsu have, and probably just seeing that your work ethic and your ability in CrossFit, they're like, oh, this guy's probably pretty cool. Absolutely, I want to train with him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, rolling with those guys over at Ruka, and yes, we got a lot of good stuff planned. When it comes to jiu-jitsu, I'm gonna
Hmm.
continue to dive into it. It's something I'm very interested in.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I have found it very fascinating. I think CrossFit laid a very good foundation for it, um, with just having kind of an all-round ability to move your body,
yeah, for sure.
but it can definitely put you into like a hard place when you try to muscle through something that you should probably think more tactically about, when you mention like the chess, thinking of it like chess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you come back from a CrossFit background with just this phenomenal strength conditioning, and then you roll over into jiu-jitsu, and it's like, as a beginner, you want to try and muscle your way, and you just realize like really quickly that the more you muscle, the more people are just going to use that against you. And it's super interesting because it actually favors, I mean, you got to be calm and collected, and it's very difficult, especially when you first start jiu-jitsu, to be calm and collected when you have another guy who's trying to choke you. And learning how to regulate that, learning how to control that, I think is one of the benefits of jiu-jitsu that, I think carries over into many areas of real life.
Yeah. No, I was rolling last night and I was thinking through that exact thing. As like the guy I was going against was much bigger than me, and I've been a little distant this summer from jujitsu just because I kind of tore my shoulder a little bit, and I was like, just try to think as calmly as possible, because that's gonna be much more advantageous than trying to muscle through a bad shoulder.
Yeah.
But it did help. He did end up submitting me, but either way, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's the thing. They say tap early, tap often. You'll tap
Exactly.
less later. Like it's a good theory.
No, I agree. Now it seems that you've kind of found like quite a bit of success when it comes to like the business world. Probably having quite a few employees and like, kind of uh, giving them a workplace and helping them maybe like feed their families and whatnot. Call what you want, but that has to feel like a really big win. Do you ever? What does it feel like as a business owner providing a foundation for somebody like to build their career and build their life off of?
I don't know, man. I mean, it's obviously it's great. But it's a lot of responsibility. It's not always rainbows and unicorns. It's like on the one hand, you want to, I thought if you'd asked me how I measured success 10 years ago, I would have said, having a huge team and doing tons of revenue. And now I think my vision of success has changed. It's a smaller team with high profit to pay them super well. Like I think at our biggest, we've had like 130 employees. And I think for me, like I'd rather have 30 employees that are each making 6 figures plus crushing it than have 130 employees that, are doing fine. Right. And that's just kind of how I've evolved over the years. I want to see people around me thriving. And so, yeah, I guess to answer your question, like there is a lot of responsibility, but I don't want people just to work for the company. I want them to work for the company and thrive. It's a different mindset. It's not just enough for them to do okay. I want them to be really winning, buying houses, doing stuff like that.
Gotcha. No, I think that's a great way to think about employees is, and investing in them so they can grow and thrive, as you say. When you compare your successes of today to successes of like winning the CrossFit Games, what has changed, and what do you like about like kind of both of those time frames of your life, like now versus back 15 years ago?
Back then, you're trying to win the CrossFit Games, trying to be the fittest on earth, and I think that there's a lot of value there. It was just something I kind of fell into because I loved the grind of the sport. But now, it's different, right? Now I practice jujitsu, I train, I train with my kids a lot, and essentially the goal is to be, to be able to protect my family, to be able to provide for them, and to be able to train super hard so I can go do the things that I want to go do, and I don't want to be inhibited by my fitness ever. And that's it's just different in goals, right? Like my goals have shifted. And I think they should, if your goals don't shift, I think there's something wrong, right? Like you're not going to be the same person when you're 25 as you are when you're whatever, as you get older, things change. So that's kind of how it's changed. It's not better or worse. It's just an evolution, and it happens for everybody.
How old were you when you won the games?
I won the games at, let's see, 21, 22. And then, so I won the games pretty early on.
So were you actively like training in an affiliate back then? What was your day-to-day life looking like back then?
Yeah, I mean, I was actively training an affiliate, and I was working at a conventional gym, and then I graduated from college that same year, and I ended up opening a gym of my own, and
Okay.
ended up doing that for since then.
Yeah, and it's gone pretty well,
Yeah,
in various forms.
yeah,
But
it's been good.
was that NorCal CrossFit at the time?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it started off as CrossFit Santa Clara, then it turned into NorCal CrossFit, and then it branded into NC Fit, kind of be more indicative of like a variety of offerings that we had at the time. And that's where we're at today.
Gotcha. That's cool. Um, what has the journey been like from, I assume when you first started it, you were like the sole coach
Yeah.
and coached basically everything that you were doing there. What has the journey like been like going from there to hiring people and passing off responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you learn a lot about leadership, right? You start off as a coach, and I think if you open up a gym, you think, "Oh, I'm going to be coaching." It's like, well, you're not just coaching, right? Because you're taking on the role of a
Mhm.
business owner. With business owner, you have a lot of roles and responsibilities, from finance to sales to marketing, et cetera. And so you got to learn really quickly, how do I delegate? How do I identify things that I'm uniquely qualified for and that I enjoy? And then how do I take things that I'm not that qualified for, that I don't really enjoy, and then disperse them up to someone else who, ultimately, buying back my time, right? How do I pay someone so that it frees up time for me to go do other things? And you start off by maybe hiring a coach, and then you grow from there. So it
Mhm.
took about 6 months, but finally I got, another coach on board that helped me a little bit. And then from there, it started to grow.
Gotcha. Oh, that's cool. Um, when you think about your first day at CrossFit, do you remember that day?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like it wasn't so much like my first day there, because I was working at a conventional gym, and a friend of mine introduced me to .com
Okay.
website. But I mean, we followed .com for like months and months, and just would cherry pick workouts. So it wasn't like I walked into an affiliate and was like, oh my gosh, it was a
Yeah.
different experience for me.
Gotcha. Okay, so I was going to compare it to what was your first day like of rolling in jiu-jitsu,
Ah, man. You know what?
if you
Actually,
remember it.
for jiu-jitsu, I actually start off with privates, and I actually think it's the best way to do it. I think that if anybody wants to get into jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, I think that starting off with privates is a really good way to go, because it
Mhm.
allows you to it just allows you to kind of acclimate to the awkwardness of it
Yeah.
and get more familiar, and then go into the gym. You need training partners, obviously, but I think starting off with
Mhm.
one-on-one is nice. You start understanding the foundations of closed guard, side control, half guard, and whatever else you work
Yeah.
on.
Do you take this same concept into like your brick and mortar gyms of starting with private classes or foundation classes?
We have like an intro, we have an onboarding process, but it is different. Like, the barrier to entry for CrossFit is a lot different than the barrier
Mhm.
to entry for jiu-jitsu. The barrier to entry for jiu-jitsu is huge. And the barrier to entry to CrossFit, some would say it's big too. And it is. You have to, identify the right coach, find the right community, all that stuff. Same thing applies for jiu-jitsu, but
Yep.
in jiu-jitsu, I think what makes it more difficult is that you're physically putting your hands on somebody else, and
Mhm.
that throws a wrench in the whole thing. I mean, one of the biggest reasons why people will never do jiu-jitsu is because they're not comfortable with that uncomfortableness of touching another human like that. It's very awkward.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I think the intro classes is a great way to start. I did not start my journey that way. But the very first partner I had was the main coach at our school. And so he was just in the process of taking over like the main coaching role. And so he wasn't there quite yet. It was like 2 weeks after that. So he was just kind of like he was the most senior person in our class. And I was the lowest person in that class, and we got partnered up. And so it couldn't have been like a better first day unless it was probably a private class with him or one of the other coaches. But
Right.
it was a great intro. Granted, I was a wrestler in like junior high, and so it gave you a little bit of that close comfortability being close to somebody like that. But that was 10 years prior to that. So, no, I think I just like I coached my first foundation CrossFit class 2 weeks ago, and I think it's a huge benefit to people starting out because our affiliate is like a pretty small traditional, what I think of in a CrossFit gym of being kind of a warehouse look,
Right.
and it gives I think it gave the guy a lot more comfortability coming in and having somebody to teach him like what's a snatch, what's a clean and jerk. He had so many questions, so it really helped with him coming into the gym because we have a pretty close gym. It's not big by any means, and it works out. But he noticed everybody being super comfortable. He's like, "What's up with everybody talking?" Because he came from a Planet Fitness where nobody talks, and so it was a big surprise to him. Now, when you compare the community of CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu, what do you think is, or even at your NorCal gyms, or NorCal Fit, what do you think that the benefit of the community is?
Well, I mean, I think they're very similar, right? The jiu-jitsu and the CrossFit community are very similar. You end up going in, you meeting people, and you create an atmosphere. Like you may never even see those people outside the gym again. But I know for me, when I go into jiu-jitsu, like they're like my jiu-jitsu friends, and I'm sure with CrossFit, there's like people would have CrossFit friends, where they know that if they show up at 5 a.m., there's going to be similar people that are going to say what's up to them, and over time, you just create like this culture and the energy. One of the things I think is really interesting is like, sometimes in a gym, some people will be on a high, some people will be on a low, and I think what you're looking for is the nice thing about a class environment is that you could feed off other people's energy, right? And when you're feeding off other people's energy, you might be on a down spiral that day, but you feed off the energy that someone else is bringing, thriving, and all of a sudden you get leveled up. And that same thing happens in jiu-jitsu too, right? People come in, they're vibing, and boom, all of a sudden you're feeding off of it.
I think once whether you start a Metcon or you start a roll, or even if you start the warm up of each, once you kind of get through that and you start sweating, a lot of the outside problems go away. I think especially when you start rolling.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like you said earlier, like somebody's trying to choke you or something like that, and there's not a lot that can clear or fog your mind in that moment.
Right.
We'll kind of switch subjects here a little bit, but when you were starting your business, how long into starting your business did you start having a family?
Well, I mean, my wife and I, we got married. So I started the gym in 2008, got married in 2009, had my daughter in 2011. So, and so I've had, I mean, my daughter's 12. So shortly thereafter.
Did it change your perspective of being a business owner when you became a parent?
Yeah, you're just more efficient with your time. I mean, I don't know if you could say, oh, it changed my perspective as a business owner. I think it just changes your perspective entirely, right? Like life comes and goes, things happen in your life, and it changes the way you look at certain things, right? Your perspective shifts as you get older, and as life throws you curveballs, right? Life will not be simple. It's just the way it goes. And as you get older, people could talk about it all the time, like, oh, as you get older, your perspective is going to shift, until you actually go through it. When you actually go through it, you realize like some of these things just don't really matter. So that's essentially the big difference.
Gotcha. And so I was going to ask more or less, did you feel more of a need to succeed and grow the business when you had the family?
Did I? No, I mean, I've always wanted to succeed, right? I mean, when I got into college, in high school, I just never reached my potential. It just always drove me nuts. And so when I got into college, I just wanted to be successful. And I think having kids, you want to be more successful. You want to be able to provide for them. But at the same time, like, you want to be self-motivated, self-driven. So I wouldn't say it super changed my perspective, but it definitely added to it, I'd say a little bit.
Gotcha. So I think I can relate quite a bit to the not reaching your potential in high school.
Yeah.
And there's a lot with like common culture of like you're athletic in high school, and most people are just, they don't do anything fitness related after that once they go to college or whatever they choose to do after high school, and then they become more sedentary, and you look back at the glory days.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And when I look at my life, I've been far more successful athletically after high school, with just becoming a fitter person. And now I don't do the CrossFit competitions or anything like that. I just don't find them to be that fun. I love doing the open. I like the community aspect of it, and the whole gym coming together. But I think I found way more happiness out of just kind of growing as an individual with my fitness, or in jiu-jitsu with learning, and also with running. But I think there's such a stigma that you have to succeed in high school, and then just kind of ride that out. Do you ever see that aspect changing in people's mind throughout, when they come into CrossFit or fitness, or coming into jiu-jitsu, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I think that if you're hitting your stride in high school, I think you're probably missing out on a lot of lost opportunity.
Mhm.
Think about it. You're that's 4 years of your life. You graduate when you're like 18, 19, or whatever it is, and you go to
Yeah.
college. And I think you have a lot more years of peak potential, especially as a guy. If you kind of hit puberty late
Mhm.
or whatever, you just have a lot of genetic potential that is untapped. For girls, maybe it's a little bit different because they might hit that a little bit earlier, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is you want to be fit for the rest of your life, right? You want to be a badass parent. You want to be able to provide, and that doesn't stop at the end of high school, right? So you
Mhm.
got to identify, why do I want to be fit? And for me, it's like, dude, I want to be the toughest guy in the room. I want to be the hardest
Mhm.
guy in the room to kill. I want to be super fit and super capable. And
Yeah.
that's going to be something I could showcase to my kids. And that's important to me.
Gotcha. No, I completely agree. I don't have kids, or I'm not married yet. In a few months, but the the uh the drive to always be better. I feel like you have that.
Yeah, you got to have that, man.
Do
Otherwise, you're
you
stuck.
do you find it to be extremely useful in growing whatever you do, whether it's your abilities as a parent, as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean that's obvious, right? I mean, this idea that
Mm-hmm.
this never settle concept is big. And I think that as soon as you settle, you're too comfortable. That's not where you're going to be able to grow. So you have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to push through that and get uncomfortable, right? And
Yeah.
CrossFit really teaches you that, right? The getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think that's the exact same thing we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. As a parent, how do you want to teach your kids that?
Well, I mean, we get our kids uncomfortable every single day, and we get them uncomfortable through the cold plunge. We get them uncomfortable through the gym. We get them uncomfortable through, different experiences, unique
Mm-hmm.
and within reason, right? We
Yep.
control the inputs, and we try and get them uncomfortable, and that's important to us. And so, yeah, I mean that's a key concept for me, is helping the kids get a little bit uncomfortable on a regular basis, because if we intentionally choose to do hard things, it makes real life hard things that much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. What do they think of the cold plunge?
Oh, my daughter, actually, she's probably in it right now. It's I mean, it's just a useful tool that we use to help support what we're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Expose ourselves to hard things that real life hard things don't seem as bad. That's the
Yeah.
key. And you learn a lot. You could utilize, self breathing, self talk, etc., to overcome that as well, right? So that you
Mm-hmm.
could, by doing these hard things, you learn how to self soothe, so that when it really does happen in real life, you're better off. You're able to better handle it.
Yeah, it makes overcoming simple things in life very easy.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have found it to be very similar, because whether it's like a hard thing you go through in life or a hard workout you go through, it makes ordinary life just that much more enjoyable in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you gonna say something?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
agree.
No, when you think of success, like moving forward,
Mm,
you've been successful physically as like an athlete in CrossFit. You've been so far successful as a business owner. And it seems as a parent, you've been fairly successful so far. And what moving forward in life, what do you want to do? Like, what are some like your goals in life?
I mean, it's to do those things just better, right?
Just
It's
better.
to build a better business, build a better relationship with the family.
Mhm.
Those are important to me. And I mean, I think about it all the time, right? It's like you don't get second chances at this. This is it, right? You get one opportunity, one shot.
Mhm.
And so you want to make sure you're reaching your potential in all these different areas. And regularly checking in and asking myself that is the key. And especially at my age, like I'm 37, I've learned a ton in the last 10 years. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot more in the next 10 years. But for
Mhm.
now, I'm finally starting to feel like I'm hitting my stride. Like I'm understanding life more. And it took me a while to get there, you know?
Yeah. What have been some like the biggest moments in your life where you that have like led you to that?
I mean, I think, you know, my daughter got sick with leukemia. That changed my outlook on things. Competing at the CrossFit Games changed my outlook. Having a business and dealing with a bunch of bullshit that goes with that has changed my outlook on things. Like, there's a lot of different factors that have jaded me slash changed my perspective. And I think that's how you ultimately, you know, get to a point where you're
Mhm.
hitting your stride, right? Because it's this balance of like young enough to have a grind, but old enough to kind of understand some stuff, you know?
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah,
balance, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
I, I still feel like I'm very young, but that old enough to understand things comes more and more every year. And not to like say like, oh, kids these days or something like that, but you just have like I just hit 8 years of being at a CrossFit gym,
Mm,
and seeing how the gym has changed and stayed the same, like
for
just gives
sure.
you more of an enlightened look into like what works for a business, what doesn't. And it's not that I own the gym or anything like that, but I've coached at it for 5 years, and so and I've coached at another gym in Columbus as well. So it's interesting that like, you don't realize on your first day of something like what you're gonna know 8 years in or
Yeah, for
two
sure.
years into um jujitsu now, but it is cool. Do you have any aspirations of doing anything in the jujitsu space, or just kind of sticking with being a student there?
I mean, I mean, I've competed in jiu-jitsu like 5 or 6 times. We're going to put out programs that are going to help people who are
Okay.
jiu-jitsu athletes with their strength conditioning, but
Yeah.
uh, that's about it. I'll continue to be a student. I mean, I don't really ever see myself. I mean, maybe one day, I don't know. Maybe
Hmm.
I'll teach jujitsu, but I doubt it. I think I'm kind of more focused on just kind of being a student. I like being a student. I think it makes you a better human. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sticking with that.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by it's this. I went into learning, or like education for both my undergrad and my master's, and it's so interesting watching the way people coach and people teach, whether it's jujitsu, CrossFit, or just like the field I work in. But I love being a student again, and jujitsu was completely new to me, and like as long as I can remember, I went to the gym, but jujitsu at 20, 24, 25 was a brand new thing to me.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to be a student again and learn how people learn something completely different than I've ever done. And so I always enjoy being like sitting and listening or being the test dummy that the instructor demos the move on. It's always fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, learning something, being a new student, I think is important. So, I mean, especially as you get older, you get stuck in
Hmm.
your ways, things like that. But if you could become a student again, that's the key.
Yeah. Well, I want to give you time before your meeting. You said you have I
Yeah.
guess we have like 20 minutes, but um what are, I'm just going to ask for like 3 tips
Sure.
that you would share with anybody who's just trying to become a new student at something.
Well, I mean, I think the tip number one is you have to be humble enough to do it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to ask yourself, why do you want to become a new student in the first place? So, like, why do you want to become a new student in the first place? Most people like to be good at things.
Mm-hmm.
I know I do.
Yeah.
But why do you want to become a student? Well, you want to become a student because you want to learn new skill. You want
Yeah.
to get uncomfortable. You want to, have a beginner mindset again. So if those are your whys, then you got to remind yourself of your why as you're going through that process, because learning new skills sucks. And
Mm-hmm.
so you got to understand why you're doing it in the first place. Like, take, for example, I know we're talking about jiu-jitsu, but take, for example, learning a language, right? Why
Yeah.
do you want to learn a language? Well, I want to be able to express myself in a different way. I want to be able to go to different countries and be able to go speak Spanish. I want to be able to go do whatever your why is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to go out there and go perform it. And I think the reality is that it's going to be tough. And you got to revert back to your why on why you're doing it in the first place. That's it.
Yeah.
So the tip is, why do you want to go learn a new skill? And then you say all these reasons why. There's gonna be like 10
Mm-hmm.
reasons why. And then it's like, why do I not want to go learn a new skill? And there's gonna be like 3. It's like, I don't have time. And all of them are just bullshit, right? All of them are just like, whatever. So then you got to choose to reflect on your why. And then that's the thing that's going to keep you motivated.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. And then I don't always ask it, but I want to ask it on this one. And it's kind of like the question of my podcast. What's your why? And I'm just curious, at this point in your life, what is your why?
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be, it's going to be to provide and protect
Mm-hmm.
and my family. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. And so I'm going to train hard. I'm going to get after it. I'm going to get hard, train hard on the mat, train hard in the gym. I'm going to work hard, in the gym, in et cetera, so I could provide. And I want to be able to provide them the best life possible and be the best dad and husband I could possibly be. That's it.
Gotcha. And I think that's a great way to end the podcast. But and it was a short and sweet one. But I really do appreciate you kind of coming on today and giving me some of your schedule today.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me, and thanks again.
Absolutely. Well, I'll probably get this shared out tomorrow or Thursday. But I appreciate you coming on once more, and you have a great rest of your day here, Jason.
Yeah, you too, man. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty, guys. Another great episode of the podcast. This one was a little bit shorter, but if you liked it, give it a review on Spotify or Apple. I appreciate you guys coming back for more, and look forward to more coming out next week. We have another one coming here soon that I'm excited for you guys to listen to. So peace out for now, and check back later.